Hey y'all, this video we're going to talk about all the stuff in England that I have noticed while living here that surprised me, and I think anyone who visits or comes here to live should know. It's better to buy a bartender in a pub a drink rather than leave them a tip. Sometimes, not all the time, but it actually can be insulting to leave a tip for the bartender. This is something that's very alien to me as an American, as we are a tipping culture, and mainly because the bartenders and service workers typically do not make more than a couple dollars an hour. And because of that, they rely on tips in order to make their money. Since I was a service worker for a good portion of my early adult life, I totally over-tip typically, and it felt really strange to me to not leave a tip for the bartender the first time I went out here in England, but it's just not really done that much. If you're in a sit-down dinner, sometimes gratuity will be added and things like that, but the bartending situation specifically, it's actually better if you just buy them a drink. Don't be surprised if you're in an area where there's more sheep than people. There are sheep everywhere in this country, no matter where you go. As far as I've gone to the north of England, I've gone to the west of England. There have been sheep everywhere I've gone along the way, and there have been times where there were just rows of countryside with sheep all over them. This hasn't happened to me personally, but I have heard that sometimes people have had to pull over because like sheep would be crossing the street and stuff. I don't know if that's true and they're just pulling my leg or not, but it's something to be aware of. There are definitely a ton of sheep here, and you just have to embrace that. There are no outlets in the bathrooms. So it is a safety thing here. You do not have outlets in the bathroom unless it's extremely low wattage for specific things like shavers and electric toothbrushes. So if you are an American like I am and you're used to having outlets in the bathroom to blow dry your hair, things like that, or use tools for your hair, just realize that you're gonna have to do it in a bedroom or another room in the house. Speaking of outlets, you'll have to, in most cases, turn on a switch in order to get the electric current to the actual outlet. In America, you just plug something in and it's live and you're ready to go. This is something that took me a really long time to remember. You see this video here all about my battle with British Electric and trying to remember to turn on the electric switches. But if it's something that you're not used to looking for or you're not used to using, it can be a little bit just tense at times to try to figure out what's going on. But that's what it is. You have to turn that switch on in order for the electric current to go to your device. When you're going out to eat here in England, you will have to ask for the bill. They will not rush you. They will not assume that you're ready to go like they do in America. In America, it's all about turnover, and they'll leave the bill even if you're still drinking your coffee and things like that. And the famous line is, "I'm just gonna leave this here for you for when you're," and it's usually like a sign like, "Hey, it's time. You guys got to get out." It's not like that here in England at all. I think most of Europe is like this as well, from having conversations with people in my personal experience. They do not rush you at all. They don't rush you through your food. They don't rush you to take your order, and they definitely do not rush you out the door. So you will in most instances, you will have to ask for the bill and in order to let them know that you're ready to leave. When people say, "You all right?" it actually means, "What's up?" They're not actually asking if you're okay. It's basically just saying, it's like an acknowledgement of you, and that's it. You can go into it, and most people are polite and will have a little bit of a conversation for you, but it's basically just their way of acknowledging your existence and not their way of starting a conversation. Unless you're in a particularly chatty mood, or you find someone else who's in an equivalently chatty mood, most of the time they're just saying you're all right. And they just want to get on with whatever the question is or whatever you need from them. They're not really asking for your life story, so just be aware of that. Is it lunchtime, dinner time, or tea time? Having our tea is the equivalent of dinner time in most cases. Conversely, when people say we're having our dinner now, they usually mean lunch. This took a long time for me to figure out. I kept thinking having my tea meant you're sitting down and having afternoon tea, or you're just sitting down and having a cuppa. And when they said dinner, I'm like, why are you having dinner at 12 o'clock in the afternoon? They actually meant they're having their lunch. And they also, you know, for the schools, they don't call them lunch ladies or lunch employees or employees that are serving lunch, they call them dinner ladies, even though they're serving lunch. It can be a little bit confusing if you're not used to it, but this is a little tidbit that I picked up, that you have to kind of do that translation in your head. Are they actually talking about dinner? Are they talking about lunch? Or are they talking about having a cup of tea? There is a language barrier. Despite the fact that Americans speak English and English people obviously speak English, there is a big language barrier. There's a lot of slang. There's many different accents. They have this way of pronouncing certain consonants and not pronouncing other consonants. And also there's just so many expressions that, in my experience, when I first came here anyway, I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And I've often felt like they might as well be speaking another language completely for me. It's going to be a difficult thing to master if you're just new here. And even if you're visiting, just don't be afraid to ask. Once you start speaking, they're going to know that you're obviously not from England. And they will, most of the time, be pretty nice about it. So just ask. Because if you don't and you do make a mistake, they will make sure they call you out and embarrass you about it.
English people apologize all the time.
You will hear the English people and Brits in general say sorry at least a dozen times throughout your day. They apologize for everything. It's just something that they do here. It's part of the culture and it happens all the time. And even if it's something that's not necessarily their fault, for example, if you bump into somebody, they might say, oh, sorry, and go about their day. But you'll hear it. Don't take it personally. It's nothing usually that you haven't necessarily done anything majorly wrong or anything like that. It's just a way that them being polite and avoiding confrontation. So just bear that in mind if you're ever here in England. Umbrellas are optional here in England. Not many people use umbrellas unless it's like a really bad storm. And even in that case, I've seen lots of people just walk around, not even wearing coats. But you might have a hoodie on, you'll put your hood up, or you'll have a raincoat. Some people do use umbrellas, but most often they don't. If you prefer to use an umbrella, by all means, go for it. But just know that it is kind of annoying, especially because it gets windy here as well, particularly in rainstorms. And the umbrella most likely will not help you.
Cash is still king in a lot of places.
Although England is really, really good at the electronic stuff about bank transfers and things like that, there still is a big cash culture here, particularly when it comes to what we would call in America like mom and pop shops. So like you own that store, it's not a chain or anything like that, and it's your family legacy or something like that. Barber shops, hairdressers, nail salons, some fish and chip shops and kebab shops, they'll only take cash. Also, there's a lot of like food markets and vendors out, especially in the spring and summer months if you're here in England. And if you can, in most cases, they appreciate the fact that you use cash in those situations as well. Most convenience stores, gas stations, petrol stations, if you're in England, will have ATMs that don't charge a lot of fee. If any, you'll be able to get cash out and use it. But just so you know, there's a lot more cash only places here in England than I even realized, and I still struggle sometimes remembering what's what. So I always have a little bit of cash and coin on me just in case. Talking about the weather in England is the equivalent of a small talk in America. So like, hey, did you see the game last night? That would be a typical small talk kind of topic that would come up in America. Here in England, it's about the weather. People talk about the weather, they complain about the weather, they're worried about the weather. Oh, it's changed. Oh, it's too hot, it's too cold, it's rainy, it's miserable. Oh, you can't do anything, it's gotten dark so early. There's always a complaint about the weather. There's always a chat about the weather just about every day that in my experience here in England, being here about 18 months now, I don't know if a day has gone by where we haven't talked about the weather, or I've at least heard somebody talk about the weather. So just know that they're trying to make small talk with you, and it's a very, easy and good, somewhat benign topic to talk about, and especially with someone that you might not be that comfortable with or you don't know that well. trying to be friendly and strike up a conversation with you in that nice, platonic, safe way.